Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a transfer story that's really stirred things up, especially for, well, Arsenal fans.
Ah, yes.
We're talking about the potential signing of Christian Norgaard from Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been anywhere online, you've probably seen it. A lot of fans seem irate, upset, maybe underwhelmed.
Definitely underwhelmed. Even angry is a word being used.
Right. It feels like this isn't the huge statement signing people were expecting,
Yeah,
especially, when everyone's talking about needing a striker.
exactly. And that's really why we wanted to do this deep dive. Because despite that reaction, the sources we've looked at, they paint a very, very different picture. They actually argue this is a really intelligent signing, one that makes total sense for Arsenal strategically.
Okay.
So our mission today is really to unpack why, to look beyond that initial feeling and see the strategic thinking here.
Okay, so let's tackle that underwhelming feeling head on. Because it's real, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
There's this big clamor for a top striker, and then the news is about a midfielder. It feels disconnected, like you said, not the splashy signing.
It does feel like that on the surface, but the counter-argument from the sources is pretty strong.
Yeah.
They're saying bolstering the midfield, giving Mikel Arteta, more options, more tools. That's actually a very smart move.
So it's not either a striker, or midfielder.
Not at all. The need for a striker is real, yes. But that doesn't mean strengthening the midfield is a bad idea. It's addressing another critical need, a different piece of the puzzle.
Right, okay. More tools, more options. That makes me think about last season, when Arsenal's title challenge kind of faded. What specifically went wrong then, based on your research, and how does Norgaard fit into fixing that?
Yeah, that's a crucial connection. The sources consistently point back to last season. They talk about Arsenal lacking quality cover, real experience in key moments, not enough depth or options when things got tough.
Right.
And Norgaard's profile seems almost tailor-made to address exactly those points. He's Premier League proven.
Which means less risk. He knows the league.
Exactly. Minimal adaptation time needed. That's huge for a team aiming for the title. He's got that experience. He's described as a real fighter, someone you can rely on. And he had a really good season last year, consistently.
And he's 31. That seems a bit older for signing these days, doesn't it?
It does, yes, slightly older is the term used. But interestingly, the sources frame this age as a positive for Arsenal's midfield. They see it as bringing in vital experience, maybe some leadership qualities.
Okay, experience and leadership. And it sounds like it's not a massively expensive deal either.
Apparently not. The reports suggest Arsenal are looking at around $10 million.
10 million?
Wow. Which, would be a significant profit for Brentford on what they paid for him. So a cheap option in today's market, relatively speaking.
Okay. Now, you mentioned online reactions. I've seen people say, well, he's not better than Thomas Partey. What do the sources say about that comparison? Is that the right way to look at it?
That's a really interesting point, and the analysis actually calls that out. They call it a straw man argument.
A straw man?
Yeah, like setting up an easy target to knock down. The argument isn't that Norgaard is better than Partey. The sources are very clear. He is not coming in to replace Thomas Partey. That's not the plan.
Okay, so if he's not replacing Partey, what is his role then? Who is he replacing? You mentioned Jorginho earlier.
Exactly. The analysis positions him as a replacement for Jorginho, who left on a free transfer.
Ah, okay.
And the claim is pretty direct. Norgaard is seen as a better player than Jorginho.
Better than Jorginho.
Sure.
How so? Jorginho brought a lot of experience, didn't he? That Champions League medal, the Euros win. Arteta seemed to value that leadership.
He absolutely did. Jorginho played a decent functional role, a system role, as the sources put it. And yes, he brought that element of prestige, that experience. Arteta reportedly wanted to keep him, even at 33, for that leadership aspect.
Right.
But the argument for Norgaard is this. He's 31, so he also brings experience and arguably similar prestige as a Premier League captain. But crucially, the sources argue he had a better season last year individually than Jorginho ever really put together consistently in the Premier League.
A better season overall.
Yeah, more consistent, perhaps more impactful week to week. So the idea is you get the experience plus potentially a higher level of performance right now. He fills that Jorginho gap, but possibly as an upgrade.
Okay, so it's not just about the technical side, the passing stats and whatnot.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's more to it. The sources talk about his mentality, his presence. What's that about, this fighter description?
Yeah, you've hit on something really important there. It's about the intangibles, too.
Yeah.
He was Brentford's captain, remember, led them to a top-half finish. That shows leadership qualities. And then there's this fighter aspect. The sources use words like spite, venom, even physical aggression. The argument is that Arsenal perhaps need a bit more of that edge to become, as they put it, nasty champions.
Nasty champions. Okay, I get that. Like
Yeah.
adding some steel.
Exactly. And there's data, too. He was apparently 8th in the Premier League for ball recoveries last season. That's significant.
8th, wow.
There's even this anecdote mentioned about him splattering into Martinelli in a game.
Oof, okay.
The point being made is that robust footballers win trophies. You need players who aren't afraid to put a foot in, who bring that physicality.
And that toughness, that reliability also plays into squad depth, right?
Wow.
Which was a big issue.
A massive issue. Arsenal are looking at potentially 60 games next season, maybe more, across all competitions.
Yeah, that's a grind.
You just can't rely on the same 13 or 14 players like they arguably had to last season. Norgaard provides a genuinely fresh option in central midfield, someone reliable Arteta can turn to. That depth is non-negotiable for competing on all fronts.
So Norgaard adds depth, experience, physicality. But how does this fit into the bigger picture? We're hearing other names linked with Arsenal's midfield, Martin Zubimendi specifically.
Yes, exactly. The sources link this move very closely with the expected arrival of Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. That seems pretty far along, maybe around 55 million.
Okay, so how do Norgaard and Zubimendi complement each other?
Well, the thinking seems to be that Norgaard's experience, 31 years old, knows the Premier League inside out, will actually make life easier for Martin Zubimendi.
Ah, okay. Help him settle in.
Precisely. Zubimendi is 26, talented, but coming into a new, very demanding league. Having someone like Norgaard alongside him who knows the ropes could be invaluable. And the sources make a pretty bold claim here. They say Zubimendi and Norgaard combined are so much better than Partey and Jorginho combined.
So much better. Wow.
Yeah. It signals a massive elevation, a real refreshment of Arsenal's central midfield options, not just plugging gaps, but actively upgrading.
That does sound like a clear strategy, but it still needs other pieces, presumably.
Oh, definitely. The sources are clear on that, too. They say you need to marry this signing up with some slightly more statement-inspiring signings. Maybe that top-tier center forward everyone wants, or perhaps an elite-level winger. This midfield rebuild is crucial, but it's part of a larger plan.
Makes sense. Okay, let's flip perspectives for a moment. What about Brentford? This must be tough for them. Losing their captain, a key player.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly a difficult situation for Brentford. They are reportedly desperate to keep hold of him. He's seen as their captain, a key player, maybe even the jewel in the crown now.
So they're fighting it, haven't accepted the bid.
Not the first one, it seems. They're trying to squeeze a bit more money out of the deal, which is understandable.
But will they sell, ultimately?
The analysis suggests they probably will have to. Firstly, there's a feeling that Norgaard, at 31, deserves this chance. An opportunity to play Champions League football, challenge for titles. It's a big personal step up for him.
Hard to stand in his way, perhaps.
Exactly. And financially, it's a great deal for Brentford, making a huge profit, maybe tripling their initial investment of around £3 million. That's good business. But plus, there's context. Brentford might be facing changes, maybe losing their manager, Thomas Frank.
Ah, who Norgaard has worked with before, right? At Brentby, too.
Yes, a very close relationship there. Sources suggest Frank's potential departure might even be part of Norgaard's thinking. End of the day, Brentford probably feel they cannot have an unhappy player, especially their captain, so they'll likely negotiate the best price and let him go.
So bringing it all together, this deep dive really shows how the Norgaard signing, while maybe not the headline grabber fans wanted initially, is framed by the sources as a really smart, strategic piece of business for Arsenal. It addresses specific weaknesses, has vital depth and experience, and fits perfectly with other moves like Zubimendi. It feels like a calculated leveling up, focusing on team construction over just star power.
Absolutely. It's about building a more robust, versatile squad piece by piece. And that maybe leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. What is this kind of intelligent team building, prioritizing specific roles, experience, complementing skill sets rather than just chasing the biggest names or statement signings? What does that tell us about achieving success in really competitive fields, maybe even beyond sports? How could other organizations, maybe even your own workplace, benefit from a similar approach? Looking beyond the obvious, flashy solutions to build something truly effective and resilient for the long haul, something to think about.